Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Strategic Ownership webinar series presented by Catalyst Connection and Rivers Edge Alliance Group. My name is Art Cintore. I'm the Managing Director of Financial Services here at Catalyst, and this is the second in the series, and the title is What Happens to My Business If I'm Not Here? Before we begin, I do want to and introduce the speakers. I do want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar for future use. We ask you please keep your phones on mute until we come to the question and answer part. In fact, during the webinar you can type in your question at the top of the window where you will see a chat option. You can type your question so that the speaker can view it and speak to it during the webinar. But basically I think we're just going to have the Q&A at the end of the webinar. So we just want to remind you again to keep your phones on mute. Okay, I would like to at this point introduce our speaker and our partner today. Once again, our partner is Rivers Edge Alliance Group, and our speakers for today are Todd Torquato and Cliff Brown. Gentlemen?
Art, thanks so much. First of all, I'd like to thank Catalyst Connection for hosting today's webcast and for inviting us to speak to everybody here this afternoon. We're going to start off. My name is Todd Torquato. We're going to run through the agenda here. We're going to do a quick introduction of Rivers Edge Alliance Group. We're going to go through some important stats and trends, and then Cliff Brown from my team is going to talk about the need for a protection plan and business safety net, and then he's going to go through the business protection checklist. I'm going to be back on for a recap, and then Cliff and I will field any questions that you have from today. Like Art said, we're going to the chat box on the lower right-hand side of your screen. Please send any questions through there, and make sure that they go to Catalyst so that we can see them all. We'll answer all the questions at the end during the question and answer session. And one thing I wanted to remind everybody is if you missed the last session, you can find that recording on mymanufacturingconnection.org. Or you can give me a call or shoot me an email. My contact information is in the presentation, and I will make sure to get you a link for that. With that, I'd like to introduce my firm to you. Once again, my name is Todd Torquato. I'm a co-founder and director of Rivers Edge Alliance Group. Rivers Edge Alliance Group is a lower middle market investment bank, and what that really means is we help people buy, sell, value, and enhance their companies through offering mergers and acquisition services, business valuation services, and strategic ownership planning services, typically to clients that are about $50 million in revenue or less. I also have on the call, who I mentioned, is Cliff Brown, who's my Director of Valuation and Strategic Planning. Moving on, we'd like to talk about some important stats and trends. As a business owner myself, I understand, the realities of business ownership, and I think it's important to note that 50% of business owners will actually face an unplanned exit due to a dismal D, which is death, disability, divorce, dissent, or dissatisfaction when they go to transition out of their business. And we talked last time about the fact that most unplanned exits are not from death or disability, but they do happen, and they happen more than you would think. And so for us, as someone who helps buy and sell businesses, it's always hard to get that call from a bank who's going to take a business in receivership because the owner passed away and they just can't survive, or the owner figures out or learns from their doctor that they have some health issue which only gives them a finite amount of time to live. And there's not a whole lot that we can do for those businesses if they get to that point. The other thing that I think is important to take note is that 70% of all businesses are expected to change hands in the next 10 to 15 years as the baby boomers exit and retire. And the reason that that's important is because it's the law of supply and demand. And the question really becomes is your business going to stack up if you don't have a plan in place? With all the other businesses that are coming on the market, is yours going to be attractive to buyers? the thought that a lot of business owners have is that 88% of business owners believe that their family will continue to control the business. But the question really becomes is, do the family members that you think that are going to take over, do they even know that that's your thought? Not only that, but do they even want to be part of the business? You know, what we see a lot in our industry, as we're talking to business owners from different industries across the spectrum, is, you know, mom and dad have run a business. They think that their kids are going to take over, but their kids are now doctors or attorneys or accountants or something that's different from, say, the manufacturing business that they run, and they really don't have any interest. So it's important that you talk to make sure that that's part of, it could be part of your game plan, but you want to make sure that it's part of your family's game plan. And then on top of that, you know, you could do the children that are going to take over the business, do they have the skills to take over? You know, do they have the wherewithal to continue the business and make it successful? One of the things that I think is important to note, and we talked about this at the last webinar, was, you know, as you transition through the generations, 30% of businesses transition to the second generation. And of that 30%, only 12% transition to the third generation. And of that 12%, only 3% transition to the fourth generation. So the question is, you know, what do you want your legacy to be? And in order for that to be successful and transfer through, no matter whether you're giving it to your kids or other family members or selling to a third party, you have to have a plan in place. And interestingly enough, 83% of business owners have no comprehensive transition plan, which would include protecting your business, which we're going to talk about today. And so the real question becomes, and it's here on the slide, how many weeks will your business survive if all your partners, managers, advisors, and loved ones are overwhelmed trying to figure out what you wanted to do with the business and how to do it? Not only are they dealing with the grief that's involved of whatever situation you're having, but now they're layering in, you know, trying to run the business on a day-to-day basis. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. I'm going to like to introduce Cliff Brown at this point, who's going to take you through the safety net and some of the things that you have to keep in mind to be able to protect your business going forward. Cliff?
All right, Todd. Thank you very much. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yep, you're all set.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really happy to be with you during this lunch hour to cover this topic. Just as a precursor to our conversation, if you were to do a Google search right now for emergency business planning or continuity planning, you're going to have a lot of things related to natural disasters and disaster recovery. That is not what we will be talking about today, nor is the concept of products such as life insurance and other things like that something that we'll be talking about today. Rather, what we're going to talk about is an actual plan that I believe every business owner should have in place at all times. And quite honestly, it's a very simple but often overlooked aspect of running your business, and that is protecting the value that you've worked so long and hard in creating, nurturing, and growing. And I say simple because we're not talking about a lot of time and money here. But creating a protection plan or a safety net is going to pay off huge dividends, both in terms of emergency situations, which do arise, and when you go to sell your business. The reason I say that is that potential buyers will be looking for many of the elements that we're going to talk about today as signs of a well-run business, and a business that can continue to function without you. One of the topics we'll be talking about in an upcoming webinar is the fact that if you are planning to sell your business, you need to be able to prove to a buyer that the business is not you and that the business is capable of operating if you indeed do sell your business and are no longer on the scene. So there's a lot of applications of what we're going to talk about today. So let's get into some basics about why you need a safety net for your business. And I'm going to toss out some of the most, what I believe to be critical pieces of the safety net from my perspective, but it's really a judgment call by you as to how simple or complex you want to get with this. All I can tell you is that anything will be helpful as opposed to nothing. And I'll actually share some stories with you that prove that point. First and foremost, your business is your most valuable asset, likely. If it's not your most valuable asset, it's a very large quantity. In fact, a lot of times when I look at the net worth of a business owner, taking into account all of their assets, investable assets, personal property, etc., a business can be 75 to 90% of a business owner's net worth. That's a lot of net worth tied up in a single asset. And unfortunately, when bad things happen, this asset can be dramatically affected in a negative way. And that's what we're going to try to shore up with this safety net plan. Secondly, things can and do go wrong. I've been advising business owners for over 26 years now. Along the way, I've experienced a lot of wonderful success stories in terms of business owners who have transitioned their business to their children, to their managers, to their employees, and outside buyers. But I've also had a handful of business owners who ran into one of those emergency events, such as death or disability, some other situation that meant that they weren't at the helm one day, and there are some life lessons there in terms of what can and does go wrong within the business when that situation occurs. Next, I just wanted to point this out, how much critical information is stored in your brain. Business owners are very good at multitasking. They're very good at seeing the forest as well as the trees, and a lot of times critical information is located only in the brain of the entrepreneur. It's not written down. It's not memorialized, as they say, anywhere else. And that becomes a problem if you're not able to recite those specifics on an as-needed basis. And similar to that, do your family, partners, and management team know your wishes and plans? I can't tell you over the years how many times business owners will tell me, well, I've always wanted to do this with my business. I always thought I would sell. I always thought my kids would take over. And when I ask the question, well, do they know this? Does your family know that this is what you want to accomplish? Do they know what your trajectory is in terms of when you want this to happen? And I'd say 8 times out of 10 the answer is no. I really haven't discussed that with my family, my partners, my management team, my advisors. It's just something that I've got on my mind, and I really haven't put it down on paper. So let's talk about a real-life story, and I call this one the Mad Scramble, to demonstrate the importance of a safety net. About 5 years ago, a colleague told me about one of his clients who had suffered a stroke. And not only did they go through that horrible situation, but it also put them on permanent disability, and quite honestly, they had some pretty reduced mental faculties from that point forward. The horrible part was that the family and key employees spent weeks trying to gain access to his computer, basically logging on because it was password protected. They spent time trying to locate files and otherwise understand what was in his head. And more importantly, the key managers got into a big fight over who was in charge, and one of them quit shortly thereafter. He was the key person in charge of sales. The family also didn't know that someone in this person's industry in another city had offered to pay a very handsome premium for his business about 9 months prior to his accident. And nobody knew about this offer. And ultimately, the business was sold to a local buyer who the family CPA knew, and that purchase price was about 35% lower than the out-of-town owner had offered. And unfortunately, the family found out later about the out-of-town buyer because he called trying to reach the owner, unaware that the owner had actually suffered a stroke and that the business had been sold. So there's a situation where a little bit of knowledge would have gone a long way in securing that business value for the family. Next, another story I call the Deming event, and this one is particularly near and close to my heart. A friend of mine was a second-generation owner of a financial services business. The business sold solutions and advice to business owners related to family succession planning. And one year, my friend was asked to speak to a group of peers nationally on the topic of succession planning for family-run financial services firms. And at the event, with nearly 500 people in attendance, my friend got up on the stage to deliver his speech and literally at the podium suffered a massive heart attack and died. And later on in the day, in his pocket, they found a piece of paper where he had literally written down his succession planning diagram about 2 hours earlier in the hotel lobby, because despite having advised hundreds of business owners in his career, he had neglected and put off any kind of formal planning and preparation for his own succession plan. So the upside to this story is that at least he drew a roadmap. The family had something to work off of. And in fact, that became the driving document for years to come. The downside was that because he had just drawn this up, because he had not talked to his family, and more importantly his advisors, his estate plan was not aligned with what he wanted to accomplish, which was for his son to take over the business. The business control went into a marital trust run by his wife, who was never involved in the business whatsoever, and suddenly she was in charge and at the helm. And in addition to that, the son, who was not his father in terms of his business acumen and skills, was not up to the task. And there was some life insurance that came into play, but it was it eased the blow, but it did not do much beyond a few years. So it's been almost 15 years now, and the business has become a shell of what it was. It's gone from 20 full-time employees down to 2, which are the son and daughter of my friend. And I do not expect that business to be around much longer. Once again, a little bit of planning, a little bit of preparation would have gone a long way there, and I think there would have been a better transition story had that all transpired. Okay, so let's get to some of the specifics about what you would want to have in your business protection plan. I'll cover a little bit later about where you're going to want to put all of these plan components I'll be covering, but let's just start with the key elements, and the first piece that I'm going to suggest is that you have what I call a family legacy letter. And all the family legacy letter is a handwritten even note to your family that tells them your personal expressions about what you want to have happen with your business, how things are to be run, talk about what your plans were within the business, perhaps, and what you want to have happen to the business. And I actually have a sample, or not a sample, it's actually a letter written by a former client that I can share with you just to give you a flavor of what this is all about. And once again, this is a very simple thing. You can probably sit down and write this in 15 or 20 minutes, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but once you do that, make sure that your spouse or your family members know that that exists or know where it is in the event that something happens to you. It will go a long way in terms of working through a difficult time. So here's the letter of a former client of mine, and I've changed some of the names around here. Dear Sally, Jamie, and Bobby, our family business has been a joy for me to build and run. I'm proud that it has provided so well for our family for the last 30 years. That said, the business was my passion. I don't expect it to be yours. You have your own dreams to pursue and your own lives to live. As a result, I have created the following plan in the event that I die or become disabled. I hope that this will make the process of dealing with our family business easier. Management. Day-to-day executive management should be turned over to John W. Smith, the company's CFO. He should assemble a management team made up of Roger Wiley in operations and Bill Cohen in sales. Management oversight should be provided by a board made up of Miriam, Ken, and Mary Beth. Compensation. John, Roger, and Bill are covered under the stay bonus plan that I put in place last year. We're going to talk about stay bonus in a little bit. Under this plan, they will continue to receive their regular salaries, but will also receive a bonus equal to 100% of their base salaries if they stay with our company during the transition period and maintain the company's financial performance. Jane has the file on the stay bonus plan. So he's providing some direction here. Ken drafted the plan and can answer any questions. Disposition of the business. I believe the company should be sold upon my death or disability. Although John, Roger, and Bill are great managers, I'm not sure they have the drive or the vision needed to continue to make the company a success. That's an important point there. A lot of times you will have key managers who would tell you, yes, I can take over the business, I can run this, this isn't a big deal. But you might have a different feeling about that, and it's important that you point that out to your family advisors, because I can guarantee you that those key managers are going to be talking a lot about how they are competent and capable of taking over the business, and rest assured, Mrs. Business Owner, we'll make sure everything gets taken care of, and a lot of times it does. Moving on, I've had preliminary conversations with Bob Jones at Excalibur Mergers and Acquisitions, an investment banking firm in Palatine, Illinois, about selling the company. In 1999, they thought the business might be worth approximately $10 million. I have a great deal of confidence in Bob and his team. Please engage them to sell the company for you. Then the letter goes on to talk about his advisors, possible buyers. I've listed the names and addresses of people who have contacted me recently and expressed an interest in buying the company when I was ready to sell. I haven't shared any of these names with Bob Jones or others. Please give them these names when you meet with them. There are also a few people whom I would ask that you not sell the business to. This might be something that a few of you could relate to. These are people I've run across during my career and whom, for a variety of reasons, I would hate to see take over. I've listed them on the contact sheet as well. Please don't sell to them unless there are no other alternatives. My goals. My primary goal in having you sell the company is to provide you with a financial legacy that will enable all of you to live comfortably, pursue your dreams, and have rich and rewarding lives. I wish I could be a part of those lives, but if I can't be there physically, at least I will have some comfort knowing that I played a big part in making it possible. In addition to my primary goal, I would love the company to stay in town, where it has provided good jobs for our friends and neighbors for the past 30 years. I would love the company's name to stay the same as a memorial to me. I would love it if John, Roger, and Bill could continue to be employed by the company to help continue its success. They have been good and loyal employees. If you can accomplish my primary goal and any of my secondary goals at the same time, that would be great, but please do not compromise my legacy to each of you in order to accomplish any of these secondary goals. Each of you has been a treasure to me, and together you have been the light of my life. I am very proud and honored to be your husband and father. Thank you. Please enjoy your lives and you will be successful. Remember, but I always said, enjoy what you do and success will find you. I love you all so very much. What I can tell you is that in my experience, a lot of times when you're dealing with a death or disability, the documents that you have in front of you are legal documents. They're wills and trusts. They're estate plans. They're buy-sell agreements. They're business loan covenants with the bank. All very impersonal, all very contractual in nature, and none of which really spell out some of the essences of what this family legacy letter can accomplish. So that's why I call that one of the key documents. It's something that you're going to want to put together. Moving on, in addition to a legacy letter for your family, you might want to also have a separate legacy letter to your partners or your executive transition manager. The reason I say that is that a lot of times there would be private comments and instructions and things that you would say to your family that you don't necessarily need to say to the folks who will be running the business during the transition. So consider that you might want two letters here. Once again, they're going to provide some personal expressions about your business and your team. They're going to designate who is in charge and lead the business in the transition. Once again, that's very important, as I pointed out earlier. You need to tell everyone at that business who is in charge, or there will be a fight. Next, specifics about what will be happening with the business. If your plan was to sell the business, you need to let folks know that that's what's going to be happening, because the family will be moving forward with that, and the business needs to understand that's the trajectory that's going to be happening. Okay, next, very simple, you want an advisor contact list. You need to have in one place a piece of paper that has everyone that you work with regarding your business. And their contact information, their names, their addresses, their phone numbers, etc. And maybe even a little bit of information about each of them, if you can build that in so that people will understand what they've helped you out with in the past, what areas they're good in, what areas they're lacking, etc. The advisor list is going to include your attorney, your accountant or CPA, a strategic business advisor or M&A advisor. One of my primary responsibilities as a strategic business advisor is to work with business owners in the years leading up to a transition or exit event to help them develop a comprehensive strategic plan for, excuse me, them and their business. And so a lot of time, one of my roles is to actually coordinate the efforts of all of the advisors so that they're all working from the same page. So if you have someone like that in your lives, they're going to be very helpful for you. Your financial advisor will be key, of course, having knowledge about all of your personal assets and investments and how they all function, as well as life insurance and other risk management tools. Your insurance agent might be on the list as well. And finally, your advisory board or your board of directors. And I hope that all of you have thought about and have considered creating an advisory board or a board of directors. If not, please call me. I can tell you wonderful success stories about how advisory boards work within a family business. Next, your buy-sell agreement. If you're a sole practitioner or you don't have any partners, you may have not thought about a buy-sell agreement. You may not need one. But for those of you who have partners or expect family to come on board as your succession team, or that you would like management to buy you out, you need to have a buy-sell agreement. And buy-sell agreements are one of those things that a lot of CPAs and attorneys have probably talked to you about and they have recommended to you. But I can tell you from experience that a lot of those folks simply don't understand the consequences of the directives within a buy-sell agreement. And so it's going to be very important that you seek out advice that is experienced in buy-sell documentation. That's a special practice area. A CPA might know about a buy-sell agreement, but they don't know how to draft them. And attorneys, a lot of times, this is a very small part of their business, and they pull up a specimen document out of their computer without thinking entirely about what's within that. Your buy-sell agreement also needs to be reviewed and updated. I've come across countless situations where a buy-sell agreement has been in place for 15 or 20 years, and it's no longer relevant for one reason or another. Partners have come and gone. The value of the business has changed significantly. And lastly, special attention needs to be paid as to how value is to be determined. Once again, a lot of buy-sell agreements will lock in a price at the time the document was created. Well, that's ridiculous because your business is going to change in value over time. Hopefully it's going up considerably. I've actually seen buy-sell agreements that establish the purchase price for a buying partner at book value of the business. And we all know that book value is liquidation value and that has no bearing whatsoever on the true value of your business. So it's important that special attention be given to the formula that would be used to derive the value of the business. And I can tell you that the best approach there is to specify in the agreement that a qualified valuation consultant should be hired and the value of the business determined by that individual by which everyone will proceed with either buying or selling their shares. Okay, now let's talk about the stay bonus. This is something that has come along in the last 10 to 15 years. It's growing in popularity, I guess. And basically what it is it's a way to help keep your key employees on board during a transition. And there are all different types of transitions. Today we're talking primarily about emergency transitions where death or disability or some other disaster has occurred. But even when you're talking about a progressive, formal transition plan over a period of years, whether it's to sell the business to your employees or to your kids or to an outside party, your key employees need to be with you during that transition and post-transition. And when key management get wind that, for example, a business is going to be sold to a third party, they update their resumes. They start looking for other opportunities. They realize that they're on a short fuse there, perhaps, and they're not going to risk their jobs and their lives and their personal success for a business that to them appears to be headed off into a different direction. So what stay bonus is it provides a cash bonus in addition to normal compensation in exchange for remaining with the company for a specified period of time. And I've seen all different kinds of agreements that have been put together, from the very formal to the informal. What I could tell you is that generally speaking, we're talking about a period of 6 to 12 months of transition that you want to have an agreement that provides enough incentive to your key folks that they are willing to stay on board during the transition and post-transition. And what I can tell you is that once they make it through that transition, if they're doing their job right, they're going to continue, and they still have a role in that organization. They just need to have a little bit of help getting over to the other side, if you will, in terms of being happy with the situation. In the event of death, a lot of times what will happen is that the insurance advisor will put in some inexpensive term insurance on you, the owner. That would then create a cash windfall to the business, which could be used to pay out these bonuses. In the case of a sale or what have you, that's usually coming out of cash flow and operational working capital from the business. It's really up to you as to how that works, but once again, it is a nice plan to have in place, and honestly, the cost is minimal, but it is considered a major benefit by your key employees. If you come up with a plan and you present it to them and say, look, I want to put you in this stay bonus plan, and I want you to be a part of this business over the long term, and explain what the benefits are, it goes a long way in terms of helping to retain those folks. And it's really not costing you much to do that, but they really value that. They see that you care about them in a way that goes beyond the daily paycheck, and they are willing to help you out during a transition time. It does go a long way in that regard. Okay, so I said earlier, how do we put all of this together? The bottom line is that in today's world, with computers, internet access, and electronic storage, the problem we have is that there's too many places we can put things, right? There's just too many places that we can store stuff, and unfortunately that's what usually ends up happening. We have stuff on our personal computer hard drive. We have stuff in file cabinets at work. We have stuff in the file cabinet at home or in our desk drawer. We have a safe deposit box. The list goes on and on and on. And that becomes a real problem when someone else is trying to put everything together and lay it out on your conference room table to understand what the overall plan was, let alone where all of the documents are. So what I recommend is that you consider having an A to Z instruction manual. I call it the Open If folder. Open in the case of fill in the blank. This is where you're going to put everything that we've talked about today, in addition to anything else that you feel would be helpful for other folks to know and understand if something were to happen to you. It's a single source. It should be easy to locate. Everybody should know where it is. I don't care if it's locked up or not, but it just needs to be in a place that everybody knows that this is where the A to Z Open If manual is located. Next, I mentioned this, all of the items noted in our previous slides. You're going to want your legal documents to be included in there perhaps as well. And you're going to want to create what I call a vital access information document. This is going to be the source that lists out the location of all of your files, your documents, etc. It's going to list your computer and website passwords. It's going to have keys, location of your safe deposit boxes, etc. You get the gist there. And all of your key person life insurance policies, disability policies, etc. And lastly, one of the things that has started to emerge in the last, I'd say, 2 or 3 years in particular, would be online cloud-based storage of all your documents. There are a lot of different services out there, some better than others, but it's something that you might want to consider. If you're not familiar with what this is, you are able to securely and encrypted upload all of your vital documents, whatever you want, onto a site that is not located in any particular place. It's just in the cloud, and you would have access to that 24/7, 365 worldwide. So if anything went wrong, you would be able to log into that and easily find your health insurance policy or your will or your investment account statements. What it's becoming is a source for you to put all of those things that you get in the mail, and the internet, and email into one place and store it so that not only you, but your family and anyone else who needs to access it has one place to get it, and it's not physically dependent as far as location. It's It's not down at the bank that might be closed over the weekend. It's not in a file cabinet in the basement of your house. It is online, and with one username and password, someone could gain access to everything that they need. I've even seen some recent developments involving health. As a side note, with a card that you have in your wallet with one of those QR codes that people can scan, that in the case that you're in an automobile accident, the emergency responder can scan that code and immediately pull up your medical records and your health history and your doctor contacts, etc., so that the care providers can do a better job assessing your situation and getting a hold of the folks who can give them more information about your medical history. And to demonstrate the importance of this, I just want to share another story, another personal story about a very close friend of mine named Bruno. Bruno was not a business owner, but his story is very important to hear. Bruno was a healthy guy in his mid-40s. Back in 2012, he took his family to Yosemite National Park on vacation. They stayed in one of the park's cabins. And several weeks later, Bruno collapsed at work after thinking that he just had the flu when he had really contacted the hantavirus. And you may have heard about this that went on a few years ago. He died later that evening, within one day of collapsing at work. But Bruno was a planner, and he actually had, and he had it written on it, in case I die file at home, which he had put together over the years. And it had everything that his wife needed to carry on. It had who to call, where all of the accounts were, monthly bills and obligations, life insurance, passwords, detailed instructions on planning his funeral down to the tie that he wanted to wear. And the point of this story is that I personally witnessed the comfort and calm that Bruno's planning provided to his wife in a very desperate time. And she didn't have to worry about anything. And unfortunately for men, I know there's some women on the call, so kudos to you, but most men are not like Bruno. They keep things very private, especially financial matters, and that's even worse for business owners. And they always plan on getting around to writing stuff down, but it never seems to happen. It seems to always be put off. So I share this because it is so important that you have something written down, both personally and for your business. And with that, I think we're going to turn it back over to Todd so that he can recap, summarize things up, and then we can get to some of the questions that you all might have for us. Todd.
Cliff, thanks so much for sharing that information with everybody and sharing those stories as well. So real quick here, we want to be wrapped up certainly by 1 o'clock. So I'd like to do a quick recap of the things that we talked today and some of the take-home points. Nobody wants to believe that they may not show up for work tomorrow, but it happens more often than you think. And of course, with that, nobody wants their family, their advisors, and their management team digging through files and hacking passwords for their computer, trying to figure out how to run the business, how to run payroll, how to get your accounts receivables and payables in check, and what clients you have to deal with and what vendors. What it really takes, as like Cliff said, is some simple planning and some time to write everything down, and that really could be one of the most valuable gifts that you ever give to your partners and your loved ones at such a difficult time. And so with that, I leave you with the last comment, which is don't forget Bruno's story. Write things down, plan in advance, so that you can help your loved ones and your partners get through such a difficult time. With that, we're going to go through some questions that came in here during the presentation. Cliff and I will we'll do our best to answer them all, and then we'll wrap it up here. But so the one question we have is it possible to put a plan in place that will sell my business after my passing? So Cliff, I'll take this one. The answer is yes. You obviously could transition your business to family members or partners, but if you're talking about specifically to a third party, It's still possible, but there's certainly some things that you need to prepare for. I think one of the way that you can test this, whether or not your business is ready, is whether or not you could go on vacation. So if you go on vacation and you're constantly getting text, calls, questions, or you go on vacation and you don't take those calls, your business declines in revenue, profitability, whatever that is, then no, it wouldn't be possible to do that. But you can do some planning to get those things in place and to replace yourself in the business, so that if that's your end desire to sell the business when you pass away because your family doesn't want it or and your partners don't, then yeah, there's certainly a plan that could do that, and I know Cliff has seen that firsthand. Cliff, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think you covered that pretty well. It is important that in your estate planning documents, you when you're meeting with your attorney, that you want to make sure that they understand what your intention is with the business. If you're planning for your business to be sold to a third party, that may affect how they draw up your estate planning documents. Things have changed a lot in the last few years with respect to estate taxation, meaning that a lot of the various planning techniques that we needed to use, say 10 years ago, because the estate tax exemption was so low, now being almost $11 million for a married couple, means that things are handled a little bit differently. But you still want to make sure that your attorney knows what your plans are, because like with one of the stories I shared with you, you don't want your business ending up in a trust that is run by someone who doesn't want to run the business. And if that business is to be sold, it can just complicate matters further if it's not in the right place. Particularly once the business is sold, you want to make sure that the cash from that business is positioned properly within your estate plan.
Okay, great. Well, Cliff, that actually dovetails into one of the other questions that came in. That during the presentation you mentioned that we should write letters to the family and to business partners as part of the plan. How do we make sure that those are actually executed? And I think the crux of that question is, are those letters legally binding that you're writing to your family members and business partners? And so my answer to that would be chances are, and Cliff, you can jump in here, but no, they're not. Those letters specifically aren't legally binding themselves. So you're going to have to make sure that they're incorporated into your will somehow. And you'd have to talk to an attorney about how to do that, but they're going to have to be referenced in your will to make sure that they're properly executed on at that point.
Yeah, I would agree. As we talked about, these documents here are documents that provide information that would not normally be contained within a legal document or a contract. This provides some of the flavor and the understanding of where you're at mentally in terms of your business, but they're not legally binding in that sense. So the key is to make sure that whatever planning documents you do have, legal planning documents, especially your will and trust, that they are tailored to achieving the goals that you're outlining in a more human way in these documents that we've talked about today.
All right. One last quick question here. Unless Cliff, you have a couple on your end, but Cliff, I'll actually ask the question to you. But how long does a safety net protection plan take to put into place? I know you've have some experience with that over the years. How long does that typically take to do for a business owner?
Okay. Well, and one of the questions I had was, who should I talk to about the stay bonus plan? So I'll answer that one as well. So the answer is it really depends on the specific situation. But when I talk about planning with a business owner, it's usually fairly comprehensive in nature, and the protection plan is almost always a component of that longer-term strategy. So usually I'm working with the business owner to help them understand what transition path makes the most sense for them and for their business based on what I'm seeing, as well as just preparing their businesses for sale, leading up to that sale. So the protection plan is something that usually, within the context of that broader planning, is something that is accomplished in 2 to 3 months, I'd say. Usually the things that take the longest are the buy-sell agreement and the stay bonus plan, only because you've got to involve an attorney to draft those documents. A lot of times what I do is provide frameworks to the attorney for both those plans, the buy-sell agreement and the stay bonus plan, based on my working history with business owners. But a lot of times that involves some back and forth with the attorney with their own schedule and what have you. So that can sometimes drag things out a little bit. But the overall goal that I have in mind is within the first 4 weeks, most certainly, to have that A to Z Open If manual in place on the shelf with most of the documents in there, and that it's ready to function on a moment's notice.
All right. Cliff, I just looked. That's all the questions I have on my end. Did any come through on your end?
Just the one about the stay bonus, so that's it.
Okay. Well, at this point, we'd like to wrap up the call here. Thanks so much for your time and attention here this afternoon. I hope you found that very helpful. If you have any questions, if you have any further questions, or you want us to talk specifically about your business, my phone number and email are up on the screen here. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email anytime. I'd also like to invite you to our next session, which is March 11th, which is my business attractive to a buyer? And so we're going to talk about some of the things that a buyer's going to look for. I have some other members of my team coming in to talk as well, who deal with buying and selling of businesses every single day. And so they're going to give a detailed discussion about what the market looks like and what buyers are looking for these days. So I hope everybody on the call can join us. And then I'll also probably be reaching out to you here in the next week or so with a recording of the video. So I look forward to speaking with everybody. And since there's no more questions, I think we're all wrapped up. Everybody on Catalyst is good. So I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks so much. I look forward to talking to you guys on March 11th. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.